Alright guys, welcome back to the third part in our landscape creation tutorial. If you've been following along so far, we have created our base landscape and started to scatter our different flora objects within our scene, and we've gotten something like this so far. And now we want to take the extra step and create some nice fog with some lighting. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let's create a Octane fog volume, and let's see, I need to make this smaller. Okay, so we got our fog volume here. Just move it into our scene, and I like to make the voxel size a lot bigger. That way when we start to increase the size of this, we don't get any slowdown or crashing, because this fog volume can be pretty intense if you leave everything at its normal settings and then you start to blow it up in size. So I'm just gonna make this big and make sure we cover our whole scene all the way to the back there. And we'll make it nice and wide. Cool, there we go. And now from here, we're going to go into our medium, open up absorption and scattering, and we'll pump these up to close to white, if not white. And then from there, we can just roll back our density until we start to see our scene. And I'm going to toggle this for now. As you can see, we're getting some nice fog. It's denser in the back and less apparent up front. And that's looking good. Just keep dialing it back, because I don't want a lot of fog in the scene. I just want to add some nice atmosphere. So that is looking pretty good. We can also play with the scattering phase. This will kind of change how the light is breaking up through the fog. So if we have it at a higher value, our light will be able to bleed through the fog and you'll get this nice hazing kind of look. This can be used for God rays and whatnot. And for our purposes, that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to dial it back some still. Now, we're getting these kind of blowouts here from the fog just due to where our sun is placed. So now I'm going to disable the fog and let's play with our lighting. So currently, our lighting is coming straight down, kind of backlighting everything. Let's play with it a bit here. Kind of want to light this right side a bit more, get some passing of the light through this tree, and that looks cool. So let's turn on our fog again and see what we're getting. Now we're still getting a lot of fog kind of break up here, which might be good, might be what we're going for, but for our purposes here, I think I'm going to try and dial that out some by just moving the sun around until we get something we like. I think that looks pretty good. And this will be a constant battle, just kind of playing around until you get something you like. I think that looks good. I'm going to lower the fog even some more. As you can see, I kind of lowered it too much. We're not really getting any effect now. Now I like what's going on here, but I don't really like all the shadows we're getting here. So I'm gonna go back into our sunlight, maybe give it some more downward. And then I'm getting those reflections on this rock area that we made wet in the beginning, which is cool. And yeah, I think that looks good. So I'm gonna leave the sun there just so we can move forward. And yeah, that'll be it for our fog and lighting. So now, once your scene is done, I'd say this is pretty close to done. We could add some character into the scene to just kind of push it to the next level, add a little bit of a story element into this scene. But for our purposes, we just wanted to get this environment set up. So let's move forward. Let's start working on our render passes. So I'm going to make this just a bit bigger so we can see all of our passes once we start getting them in here. Here we go. So we'll want to go up here, make sure we're on Octane render, down to the bottom, and you'll see this first, and you can make sure you checked use denoise beauty pass. And we actually haven't set up any of our camera settings, so let's go back in here, and I'm going to change this hot pixel removal down to 0.5, and that'll just get rid of those little specks that were kind of popping out at us. In some cases it can be good to keep some of those, but we don't want all of them, so maybe not 0.5, let's go with 0.7, and that looks pretty good. And then we're going to be using a linear setup within our passes, so we want to make sure we have neutral response checked. And then let's see what we got here. We want to make sure we're using our denoiser. Enable both of those, and I like to do a 0.2 on the blend. Okay, and I think that'll be it for our camera. And then let's go ahead and enable our render passes over here, and you'll start to see these here. We can check out our denoised beauty once it's reached 2000, since we have our sample set to 2000. I'm working in path tracing. We can also lower our GI clamp. We don't need that much. I'm just going to go with 10. That should be good. Should just speed things up a little bit, kind of get rid of those popping pixels we were getting. Okay, and then over here we want to make sure we are in EXR format. We want to be in 32-bit channel so we get the most data out of our image. Compression, you can leave it as is. Make sure we show passes, save beauty, and use a multi-layer file. This will save some time on the compositing side. And we are working in a linear setup, so that is good. And then you can go ahead and drop open this beauty passes if it hasn't, and let's go ahead and check the raw. And I'm going to skip down to denoiser passes because we want to use our denoise passes for the compositing. So we want to make sure we have our diffuse direct. We can save the beauty just for reference. Indirect, reflection, direct, reflection, indirect. We'll do the denoised volume. And now you should see these start to filter down at the bottom here. And we can click on each one and see what's going on. So there is our diffuse direct, our diffuse indirect. This can take some time. we go. So that's our reflection indirect. Everything's kind of slowing down for me right now, but you get the point. We have our passes here. We have all of our denoised passes ready to go. And now we can go in and enable some more passes just to get some more data when we finally start compositing. So I'm going to go in, enable the environment. And since this is kind of bogging down our scene, I think I might pause this for now once it lets me. So there's our volume, looks really cool. Pause it. So I'm gonna get a few more passes here. So let's make sure we can get our environment. We are using transmission for our flora. Don't think we added any subsurface scattering, but I'm gonna check that just in case. I think the shadow pass is a cool one just for fun. And then I like to check these if the Z depth pass isn't working like it should be. So that's a few of our passes. We can even go into our lighting pass and do ambient light direct, sunlight. So this will be the light from our HDRI, and this will be the light from our sunlight. And we can use that to our advantage when compositing. And then within the info passes, these are a couple passes I like to add just for breakdowns and whatnot. We can add an AO, wireframe, and a Z depth. Z depth can be used for using fake depths of field within your compositing software. So we can enable that. And then let's see if it wants to cooperate. So now we have all of these passes down here. We can look at our transmission. And we can see if we have any subsurface scattering, and we do within the water here. Shadow is a cool one. I just think it looks cool. I don't really use this when I'm compositing, but you can use it to get some interesting looks if you're going for something that is a little more abstract, I guess. We have these Z depth passes, and I'm going to skip down here to ambient light direct. This will be the lighting that we use from our HDRI. And it seems to have slowed down quite a bit on us again. Check out our sunlight. Here's our sunlight indirect. It's looking good. Check our Z depth pass. And if your Z depth isn't working the way it should be, you should play with the Z depth max until you get some nice fall off within your scene, and that looks good. Wireframe I just use for breakdowns. Now we do have a lot of faces within here, so it can get a bit dense. Can't see much, but we can also use the AO for breakdowns. This gives us a nice flat white look to our scene. You can see everything that is going on nice and easy. And that's about it for the render passes. Once we have all of those enabled, you'll want to make sure you set your output. Go ahead and set your output over here. Make sure we're in 32-bit. And I'm going to make this 1080. And then we can double check. Okay, we're at 2000 samples. Everything seems good to go. All right, from there we just need to render out our image, and then we will get started on the compositing. So I'm gonna cue the render. Alright, so our image is done, and there's one thing I forgot to mention. Up in the Octane settings, we just want to make sure we have our alpha channel selected. This will be for compositing our environment back into our scene, and I'll go over that in just a moment. But I like to do my compositing in After Effects, and there's one thing we want to make sure we change before we get started. We just want to make sure we're in 32 bits per channel, and we want to check this box next to linearize working space. Press OK, and now you'll see we're in 32 bits per channel, which is perfect. And I'll bring in both of my images. I got my passes and my beauty image. And you'll see when we click on this, our image was rendered using a linear color space, which is why we wanted to make sure we check this box here. And now everything should be good to go. So I'm just going to bring in our passes and put them in their own comp. And then we're going to want to use this effect in 3D channel. It is called the extractor. And then in order to get this to work, we'll need to click right here. And then here is all of our passes. And we got our denoised passes here. We're going to want to start with these and layer them. So first things first, I'm going to choose this diffused direct. And now you'll see we have our alpha channel here. If we didn't check alpha channel, we would have a black sky, and we would composite our whole image and we'd still have a black sky. And it'd be really hard to kind of avoid that. So make sure you check alpha channel before you export so we can avoid that issue. So now we just want to stack everything. So it does help to name all of these layers. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. So next one we're going to want to get is this diffused indirect. Duplicate that, and we'll grab the reflection direct, and then the reflection indirect, and we can grab our volume. Going to want to grab this transmission here. Next, I'll grab the subsurface scattering for the water. And then I'm going to grab this ambient light indirect. I'm going to grab the sunlight direct and the sunlight indirect. And this should be enough information to composite our whole image. So down here at the bottom we have our diffuse direct, and we're just going to want to grab everything above that and then change this to linear dodge. And now all of our layers are stacking nicely on top of each other. Next, I will duplicate the bottom layer, and then on the very bottom one, we'll change this one to our environment. And that'll give us our sky, which is looking good. And we could even, this is just the HDRI. We could take this image and replace it with anything we want. So if you wanted to change your sky afterward, you can do so. I think this one's a little blown out, so, but for the purpose of the tutorial, we're just going to leave it as is. And there we go. Everything is composited on top of each other. And we can even reference our beauty pass. And you can see the difference. So from here, I believe we're missing something. So we got our ambient light indirect, sunlight direct, ambient light indirect. Oops. There we go. That one was supposed to be sunlight indirect. My mistake. But that's why it helps to kind of name these and make sure everything is in order. So now everything is here. And the cool thing about working with these passes is I like to just bring up the opacity on each of them, and you can go in and just tweak everything to your liking. So right here we're on the reflection and direct. I like to leave those as is. The volume, this will be how much fog is in our scene. Transmission, how much light is passing through all of the leaves and whatnot. I'm going to tone that back a bit. Subsurface scattering, this will be our water. I'm going to tone that back a bit too. And yeah, and this is the great thing about working with passes. You just have so much freedom and flexibility to play with your scene after the fact, taking everything out of that 3D world and making it nice and 2D, nice and easy to work with. So I think that'll be it for this tutorial. I'm not going to go too far into color correcting an image like this. For the most part, I just wanted to go over getting the image out of Cinema4D and then compositing it all together in After Effects. So yeah, that's going to be it for this tutorial. If you guys have anything you'd like to see, any tutorial suggestions, let me know, and hope you got something out of this tutorial, even if it was just something small. And that's it, so I'll see you in the next one.